What are the advantages of a cash offer versus a financed offer, and how do you write that offer so everybody understands the competitive advantages? Some of this is going to be an education process for you guys listening, and then there's also that education for the reciprocating broker. They don't always understand what the value props are of a cash offer, and again, that's our job. There's a lot of rookie brokers out there that need to be educated. So at the closing table, the seller is getting the same title check. I don't care if it's financed, cash, that check is printed on the same paper. So how do you figure out where and when to accept that cash offer versus a financed offer if you're a seller? And as a buyer, how do you try and save your buyer some money when you're writing a cash offer? There is no mortgage contingency when you have a cash offer. And that means the earnest money goes hard immediately once you clear attorney review and inspection. That's the real value prop. You don't have that uncertainty of, is this buyer going to get a loan? Are we going to have appraisal issues? Is this going to be something that we're continually extending all the way to the closing date, giving the seller anxiety? Every seller that is leaving their house is moving somewhere else. So there's that anxiety of, am I getting that check on the specific date of the closing, and why does it keep getting pushed? So if you're someone and your seller has a high anxiety level, you're going to be able to settle them down, and maybe there's a value prop for them that weighs heavier, accepting a cash offer versus a financed offer in that regard. The extension of a mortgage that continually happens, and we've all lived this, it's annoying. It's frustrating. You're doing damage control with your seller, and that's something that you need to manage. So as a listing broker, you need to set the expectations. Whether you're taking the finance offer or cash offer, we may see mortgage extensions. We may see mortgage uncertainties. God forbid that buyer loses a job or doesn't qualify for the loan. We're scrambling. We're potentially refinancing. What is the value of that? And again, buyer, seller, you're going to be explaining these to your advantage. So as a buyer, that's where you're kind of giving this listing broker the confidence of, hey, we can also potentially close in 14 days. We don't have to jump through any hoops. We don't have an appraisal. We don't have lending policies and things like that. So make sure you're understanding that those are the key factors of a cash offer. What's it worth? If you have a $500,000 property and you're the listing broker, you have a 5% down buyer that's willing to offer $500,000, and you have a $490,000 cash offer. If I stacked up $10,000 on the table, everyone's going to grab that extra $10,000 all day. But when you start unwinding and you're like, okay, we are going to be selling to a 5% down buyer. There are going to be uncertainties. There's potential appraisal issues. Will this guy get the loan? Is it easier and safer to go with a 490 cash offer? A lot of times that's pretty much my delta is about $10,000 on that kind of a spread. If it's a 20 or 25% down buyer, boy, it's a really tough one. Oftentimes what I will do is I will go back to that cash offer and say, hey, we love your terms. We love that you're cash. We have an offer that's $500,000 that's financed, but it's a strong finance position. If you're willing to match that offer, we'll take it. Otherwise, most sellers are really going to go with that strong finance offer and the extra 10 grand. You're not, just because it's a $500,000 property, you're not debt free. Most of our sellers are seeing whatever, $80,000, $100,000, $150,000 in equity at the end of that trade, right? They still have a loan on their property. So you're going to leave 10 or 15% of that equity on the table. Unlikely. Okay. And that's part of your job, is to educate your seller and help them understand the confidence of a 5%, 20% down buyer, cash buyer, and what's it worth. When you're writing the offer, you're going to have two different contracts. You have and again, on that delta of that $10,000 delta, you can extrapolate that into a $750 deal, $1 million deal. All that math works, and it's going to help your sellers understand where the value is. So back to writing these offers. On a 4-page contract, you're not going to click the mortgage contingency. And what I usually put, it's on I think it's on like page 2 or page 3. And then where it says mortgage, just write cash in all caps. It gives it that power, that impact. Use strong earnest money, show proof of funds. Make sure that the proof of funds buyer name matches up with the buyer contract name. if there's an investor or someone that's, assisting with the purchase, they may have to be a co-buyer on that deal just to be on the cash transaction and the proof of funds matching up. For the 7.0 contract, there is a financing paragraph. Do not initial that paragraph because you're not financing the deal. Cash transaction with no mortgage states that you are paying cash and you have no interest in getting a mortgage. It does state in bold on paragraph 30. If that's initialed, that means you have a home sale contingency. And then after your home sale contingency is closed, you're then buying cash. Obviously, that doesn't hold as much weight as a true cash deal, but it does have that paragraph in there. If you want to make that happen, click that, paragraph 30 and make sure that that's articulated. But again, no mortgage means that you are definitely not getting a mortgage. Cash transaction mortgage allowed means that you do have the proof of funds. You're showing proof of funds, but you have that option to get a mortgage if you so desire. Your lender, it does state that the seller has to agree with the lending process. They're going to have to let appraisers in and things like that. It's oftentimes what we'll do if someone wants to be really strong and they're in a competitive market, but they still want to have that option and or most likely are going to get a mortgage. Neither of the cash offers have an appraisal contingency. If you are going to do a mortgage, make sure you check that appraisal contingency if that's important to you. Personally, appraisers, that's a whole nother topic, but I think buyers and sellers, they really dictate value. Sometimes appraisers, their algorithms don't move as fast as the market. They can't use comps that are under contract. They have to be closed. So that doesn't necessarily dictate value. And sellers, while buyers think that the appraisers are the holy grail, sellers are like, whatever. The buyer said they want to pay this price, pay this price. And I agree with that, even when I'm protecting the buyer. Title fees are a little different. Fees for a buyer, you're going to have savings if you're a cash buyer. You're going to save $1,500 to $2,000 depending on the fee. You don't have loan policy, you don't have endorsements, and you're not paying for chain of title. So that's a value. For the seller, it's counterintuitive. Your seller, if you accept a cash offer, your closing costs are going to be slightly higher because you're going to be splitting the title fees with the buyer. So you're paying part of that title insurance policy. Understand that and make sure you're letting your sellers know that. In general, I love cash offers. But again, at the end of the day, you're looking at a stack of money that you're leaving on the table. If it's a really strong finance position, you got to have a hard talk with your buyers, with the sellers, and help them understand what they're leaving on the table by not accepting a cash offer that's slightly lower than the finance offer that could potentially, give them that extra $10 or $20 or $30,000 at the closing table. It's still a title check. No one's bringing briefcases around. So make sure you understand what you're leaving on the table and who your buyers are. Definitely call the lender, understand if they've been through underwriting, understand why and who they are and what their credit worthiness is when you're valuing cash versus finance. Appreciate you guys joining. Any questions about this topic? Happy to answer those or anything off topic as well. Cool. Well, thanks for joining. Appreciate it. And good luck out there.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, man.